Hello, Internet. Uh, this is a second session of Murkurgur, the Death Roll Kingdom, a game that we're playing for the Gauntlet. I will do a quick introduction of myself and have my players introduce themselves, and then we're just going to dive straight into it. We had conversations about things like the X card and all of that in the prior session, and in theory I should do it all over again because I have a new player here, and I totally would, except that it's also Sid, and I trust him to tell us, if there's anything coming up that is a thing. So we have X card in play, and when we introduce ourselves as characters, we can also reiterate, and I'd like to reiterate, if we have any lines or veils that for this game. So I'm going to start with myself, and then I'll have you guys do it. My name is Tomer, or Tomes. Been a Gauntleteer for a little while. This is my second time running this thing for the Gauntlet, and this thing being a really cool Southeast Asia fantasy setting that ZXU and Moon Cow, two guys from Malaysia, have been putting together and working on. So I'm kind of excited to create kind of like a weird system based a little bit on Fall of Magic and other stuff to kind of try to bring it into life for how I would like to see it played. So that's me. I go by pronouns he, him. And for me, lines include sexual violence. So we will not have sexual violence in the game. But I'm open to any other kind of like stuff, violence against children or other things. Like I don't have a problem with that. But again, if you do, things like violence against animals or other stuff, please bring it up as a line or a veil. I will pass the microphone over. I'm going to go from me over to the side, so I see Sid next. So go for it.
Good morning, and it is my morning. My name is Sid. I go by they, them, and I am super excited to be here to do some Murkurgur. I hate vowels, cannot stand vowels, so Murkurgur is a perfect game for me to play. Honestly, I tapped into this game about 6 hours ago, and I did it for the player list. And I'm very, very excited to spend some time on our self-indulgent bullshit with my favorite people. What was the other thing? Lines vowels. Torture stuff, like real violence is fun, and like cruelty sort of stuff is just not something that's vibing with me at the moment. Yeah, that's probably my only thing. I pass it back to you, Tomes, and a pleasure to play with you again.
Yay, I'm excited. I'll pass it over to Paul. You go ahead and go next.
I'm Pavel. I'm the European part of the Gauntlet team. So for me, it's like late evening, and I go by the pronouns he, him. I think I also share the same veil. Like not too much of torture, because some people do like brutal prisoner inventor torturing. I find it like it's better to convince someone to tell you what you want to know. So that's it.
Awesome.
Kia ora, I am Lauren. I'm also on the Gauntlet, and I'm also frantically praying on the inside to the Bear of Candace and the Macaque of Tohei, because I don't know how long my power is going to hold out for. So apologies in advance if I just disappear, but hopefully if I do it should only be for infrequent periods. My pronouns are she, her, and I think everyone's covered off most of my lines and veils. I think the only one I can think of for this game is like consensual pregnancy. I think that's going to be a line for me. Yeah, but I think that's everything.
Awesome. And yeah, those type of things are great if anybody's got them, just because there are themes in this game that can definitely cross those lines if you want them to. The game itself is not super explicit in one way or another, but we have crocodiles, and we do have teak nymphs, which have a weird kind of I'm not going to, no spoilers, but have like a weird background if you read the actual text of the game. So it's good to know about those kind of things. Awesome. But no, that's great. Thanks everybody for sharing that. And of course, we have the X card in play. So if anything does come up that you didn't realize or whatever, then we have that as well. Let's see. I am going to then kind of hand the mic over to you, Sid. And I'd like to know a little bit about the character you're going to bring into the game. And later we'll get back to our other two players here and we'll see their characters again. But who's joining us today?
So we have Najar, the pilgrim of Bambang, and I think the opening shot that we would see of Najar would like start at the feet, and it would be on some like hard swampy clay set back a bit from the water, and there'd just be this this puddle that's like water, like stagnant swampy green water is dripping into, and in it we see like these two bare wrinkled feet, and then as the camera tracks up, like it turns into these wet and heavy robes that fall over the body of this like hunched form leaning on a stick, and then covering their faces like a kind of like a plague doctor mask, but looking like a swamp hen sort of thing, like a swamp bird, with that kind of pecking, shoveling beak. And I think that the big influence that I'm pulling out for this, for those of you who've seen it, are the pilgrims from Dark Souls 3 that like carry their life on their backs, and it's kind of and so they're really like brought over by that weight. But the form is almost lost in these robes that carry so much of the wildlife of the swamp in them. Like they'd be mossy and they'd have things growing out of them and around them.
Fantastic. All right. And as far as character traits, I believe you've already chosen one, right?
Is that bad? I just
No,
did a thing.
not at
Tell
all.
me if I did it wrong.
You did. You broke the game. You did it perfectly fine. So, for those joining us this session, as a first session, our character generation has to do with choosing a name and a title, as we see kind of on the screen here, and a trait. And that trait is, something intrinsic to the character. And what you can do is, you can tell us straight out if you want, but you can also show us in the scene kind of how that plays out. But I would like at some point, like, let's say if you want to show it in the scene, also mention at the end of the scene, like, this is the trait that I was playing with, And so what I'd like to do is let's see how Naja came to this land. Now, Naja is from Bambung. Bambung is, one of the downlands, right? So it's from outside in the world, right? There are a couple of lands that are kind of trapped behind Merkurgur who have to go through this land of the crocodiles to get to the outside world. But you're not from those lands. You are from the world. So, and that's the direction that our travels have gone thus far. We're coming from the outside world into this land. So maybe what we're going to do is see a couple of scenes here with Naja, like how they got here, and also notice like on these screens, there's a couple of story prompts similar to anybody who's played like Fall of Magic, because I know you have. And also down below, it will have you choose another trait, right? On this first screen that we're looking at, where we see them coming into the land itself, coming upriver, and it doesn't have to be upriver. So that scene you set was of Naja standing on swampy embankments, right? There are ways to get into the land, which is not going upriver. But upriver is the easy way, right? And that's the way that our other characters came into the land in the last session. Maybe that's not the way that Naja is coming here. I don't know. But you'll let us know. So feel free to set a scene here. Before you do, I would like to change the music track. I'm thinking of Do you want something very melancholy or just kind of like playful? Not playful like happy, but a little more playful than melancholy.
Let's start melancholy, and we'll build to playful.
Okay, let's do 1B by boat, even though it doesn't have to be by boat. I just like how very chilled out it is.
Quit railroading me with your boat references. Oh no, this is my vibe. This is
All right.
definitely my vibe. Yeah.
So yeah, grab one of these story prompts, or if you have something slightly different, of course, feel free and go for it. And during the scene, you can show us a little bit. If your intrinsic trait comes up, that might be a thing. If not, if you choose one as you're going to choose one of these negative traits, you can show us how that plays out as well, whether that's a visual thing or comes up in some other way.
Man, I forgot how much Fall of Magic and these things are just like, okay, go be creative.
And let me know if there's something you want, someone you want to play off of in the scene, because very often that's my role. Unlike Fall of Magic, this isn't really set up to be GM-less so much, and so I'll play various NPCs or other folks around. But like I want to give you the freedom in this sense. Like I don't know how you want to come into the land or approach it. So, but once I do, I can kind of play with that.
All right, I think so the shot opens on this like tranquil river that's like flowing with a steady pace, not too quickly, but ever flowing, and we see like the sticks and leaves and things floating past, and as the camera kind of tracks to the edge of the riverbank, there's like a wet slap as one of these feet, these like wrinkled and bare feet that we saw before, enters the scene. It just like hits the ground with this dull wet slap, and then just continuing in that pace, giving that kind of following the beat of this track, like this, like fairly steady, fairly quick march beat. We see Najar walking along the riverbank, and moving at a pace that seems quick for someone so hunched and curled upon their own form. And I think that like there's probably a shot 30 seconds into it where part of the robes that cover most of their body catch on some of the it's like mangrovey trees. They're all wound amongst each other, and they look strangled and gnarled, and the robes catch, and as they pull back, we see Najar's hand, and the like the veins and the tendons of the hand seem to look the same as those mangroves, all like wound around each other and dry and aged. Najar pulls the robe back over the hand and like re-steadies it and pulls their walking stick back together and continues to tread along. And I think that like in seeing that hand, we get that idea that we've been prompted with this finding a cure for a curse. And I think that like it's almost inhuman how much that hand seems to wind over itself. And I also need to pick what I'm searching for here, don't I?
Well, there are things like finding a cure for that curse, but I don't know if that's...
Oh, they're like separate. Right.
Right.
I see. They're separate. I went for that being one prompt and them being like secondaries. It's been a while since I've Fall of Magic, man.
Well, I don't know how Fall of Magic this is.
That's true.
Exactly. But yeah, like I kept those two separate. I mean, you could be looking for a cure for a curse for somebody else, or maybe you yourself are not cursed. Who knows? These are just vague things.
I think I like the idea of being cursed or having a curse, and there's probably something that like as Najjar walks along, but beside this river, their pace slows and their steps stiffen a little bit, and their hand moves a little bit more robotically, and their shoulders don't turn as independently, and as they start to like stiffen, they place their walking stick up against one of these mangroves and kneel by the river, scooping the water like onto their body and onto their robes, and like refreshing them with the water and getting rid of that dried out cracking look that's coming over the mud that grows over them. And when they're wet again, they like stand up, roll their neck around their shoulders, and it's like lithe and fluid again, and gather up the stick and continue to walk through.
Interesting. I kind of have this sense that when Najjar is leaning there by the river and they're splashing themselves, was it just with the water or with the water in the mud?
Oh, I like that as well. I like the mud as well.
Okay. And so, they're putting this on them, and I think we see in the background, not too far away, a boat, like a small boat drifting upriver, in the middle of this part of the river, which is not too wide, but, it's wide enough where it wouldn't be a simple swim across. But, and I don't know if we recognize any of the people on the boat or not, but, I think we see something kind of like pass by. Does Najjar even look up to pay any attention to that, or are they just kind of in their own little world?
Oh, that's such a good question, right? Because I mentioned this mask. So I think that like they look up and we as an audience can't like tell what emotion is going through their face. They like see them and maybe like tilt their head a little bit and like that bird-like thing, like tilt their head out of interest, and yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So we saw one scene. Let's do one more little vignette, and we're going to jump to the next scene, which is the gates. And the gates here show us, and we described this the last time as well. These are the kind of like the most obvious demarcation that you are now in this land of the crocodiles, because these gates look like two huge maws of crocodiles staring at each other. But as you get closer, like from a distance, it looks obvious, right? These are two crocodile statues, right? Golems. But as you get closer, you're not sure at all. It looks like maybe it's a bridge that's collapsed a long time ago, or, when you see the actual architecture of it, it does not look like that this is a statue. It looks like it's a structure, but even the way the structure is able to maintain its gravity is unknown, right? Bizarre and beyond like our reckoning, right? And one of these is made out of huge black rocks. The other one made out of twisting kind of like white, smooth columns, interlaced with each other. And maybe we almost see a little bit of a parallel between like the mangrove trees and the veins, and then that specific one. But it's at a point where the river has widened quite a bit, and it's like a huge lake at this point, right? Very calm, and it's not flowing quickly. And every once in a while, we may see, you know, a small canoe or raft make its way through here. But one thing we do notice is there are definitely more shapes in the water. And, you know, some of them large and ominous.
And sorry, am I doing this one as well?
Yeah, let's
Oh
do
my
this one
God.
as well.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the Sid Hour. It's one of my favorite times. It's just me playing. It's gonna be great.
I actually wanted to. I want to do a thing actually. So speaking to this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have you hold on for just a second, and I wanna see a quick scene with the other two, and I don't need you guys to give us a rehash of who your characters are per se. I just want to do like just a quick, like, you know, the camera cuts, right? Like we've seen Naja here, and we last left you two in the port town of Singa, and there was a lot of kind of drama around certain things going on. But I actually want to see a very calm scene between the two of you. You know, is that, and where that is that like in a tea house, or is it in a hostel, or is it someplace, you know, some kind of market, or what? And just something just very chilled out where the two of you are, you know, communicating together.
Ooh, it's probably some kind of tea house.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with like a tea house. Can we have the slide with the image of the city?
Absolutely. Yay! I love that.
So this is this type of tea house where you sit on a pillow and there are like tiny little tables. Everything is like colorful, and there are I wouldn't say incense, but people are like smoking shisha. Not shisha. Yeah, the water pipe. Yeah, so
Yes.
the air is like smelling with this like melon and apples and all those other crazy fruits that we don't have names for because they are only in Markargar land.
Yeah.
And
in fact, I'm going to place you guys on Trader's Island then. And
Nice.
yeah, so Trader's Island is right across from Singa in the water there. It's a small island by most accounts. Although you'll notice, I mean, if you look at the image, I mean, there's quite a number of houses there, right? So it's very bustling as far as a little island might be. But you know, there's probably at least a score dwellings on the island, right? So, you know, 20 or so people, families all living there, a lot of boats coming in and out. And there's definitely a bit of a tourist trade here, right? So these are not all people who live here, but people may be passing through. And yeah, I think the tea house is here. But go on. We see a little bit on the inside. Any other
I think if it's possible, yeah, and I can steal some of the narration. We are sitting in like almost like a VIP area. Maybe we are like shielded from all the other customers by like a linen cloth, and probably Panya doesn't really come often to such places because like yeah, Maki is like paying for the tea and for the service and for the place, and we have this like wonderful view on the entire Traders Island, so she can see the boats coming in and going out, and the market somewhere far away in the distance, and maybe and there's like this like heavily tattooed older man with like a little monocle who's like sewing Maki arm because he got wounded last time, and definitely Maki like looks at Panya like, how do you feel? How do we see Panya feel in such a place, which is probably not a place where you visit often?
Oh, well, if you're paying for this, I just want to quickly insert like that scene where Panya like looks a bit guilty and reaches for her coin purse of like wooden coins, right? And she goes to pull them out, and then Mahi's like no, this is my treat. And then I think Panya actually like sort of like tears up a little bit. And she's like led through to this VIP area. So I think she's sitting, she looks kind of uncomfortable as she's like sitting here, but she also looks like, yeah, I am the queen. You know, like she's really enjoying it, but is not quite sure how to hold herself so poshfully.
So 2 things. One, I'm going to change the track to number 12, the floating hostelry. And that's just a little bit of, it's not music so much, but just background of what we hear there. Hold on just 1 second. Yes, the lovely partner has told me that she needs to use the microwave, but I'm able to delay it. You guys all know what the microwave does to my Wi-Fi. All right, so I think, we see that tear, right? That little tear come down Panya's face before she wipes it away, but it's not unremarked. The tea proprietor, which is it looks like a kind of middle-aged gentleman. He's got a little bit of a paunch. He's only wearing like the paunch kind of comes out, and he's wearing like a wrap around his waist, and then there's kind of like a cross wrap to make it look a little bit nicer, like it's definitely embroidered a little bit, right? But it's not covering his paunch, it's just going over it. So he's kind of got his belly, hanging out a little bit, but he comes over and he's got, a teapot on a platter, and a couple of different tea selections there. And he brings it up to the table and he says, "Oh, my dear, no. The tears here are only in the pot. Please take that away. This tea will help you forget about any sadness you might have." And, maybe he misinterpreted your tears as like something to do with sadness or whatever. But, he definitely is putting on this whole airy show, right?
I think Panya even says, like, she like wipes away like her eye. And she's like, "Good sir, these aren't tears of sadness, these are tears of joy." And there's like a little like watery smile on her face. I've never had such finery in my life. I come from a simple, small village. We drink out of like tiny cups of tea that tastes like dirt. My mother loves it, but I think it's disgusting.
Oh, then you have come to the right place. I will dissuade you of such horrible memories. And he puts down 2 little cups between the 2 of you, and he puts down this teapot and opens it, and you can see that the water is just clear, right? There is no tea inside this water, at least not yet. And he shows his selection that he's got there to the 2 of you, and asks what tea you will partake of.
I will take my favorite mango special green tea.
And he actually points at 2 of them, and one of them obviously has dried pieces of mango within the tea leaves, right? Like it looks like that they've been used there to fragrant the tea. And he points at that one and he says, "Well, this is a popular option." And then he points at the other one, and the other one is just tea leaves, right? There's no mango in there at all. And he says, "But this is for the connoisseurs. However, I do have to warn you, it comes with a bit of a price."
No worries. I will take the better one as you recommend.
Oh, well, recommended I do. But I will warn you, and this is not to speak of you, but some may not taste the difference between this and a regular tea. But the discerning tongue, yes, it will feel it. And he takes this little, this little kind of like ceramic, strainer, and puts some of those tea leaves in there, puts it in your teapot, says, "Please have a short conversation and the tea will be ready." And he turns and walks away, and he takes money from you. you know, but you've got money to spare, I'm sure. The wooden coins, of course, will not be good here.
Panya, please enjoy the tea. In the meantime, have you found what you were looking for over here? Because I have not. I'll have to travel further into the land.
No, I've had no luck finding corpse honey. Do you think they would have corpse honey here? I think honey seems like it would naturally go together with tea.
I think that's the perfect time where you see somebody walking around with a platter, like at the table next to you, and there's, you know, things that you can add to the tea, right? Different kinds of sugars, and there's obviously little containers of honey, right? Like while you're saying that.
I think Panya's like eye catches them, and you can kind of like see her like mouth open up a bit as she gets distracted and fixated on like these honey pots. And can I try and pull up some magic bullshit?
You can.
I think she leans like closer to. I guess it's like she's just not used to paying for things. Like she's so destitute and poor, and she doesn't even think like, oh yeah, I could probably ask for this stuff, you know. So I think she leans closer to Mahi and she's like, Mahi, watch this. I've got a neat trick I can show you.
Okay, I'm watching.
Watch. I think like she holds her fingers out and kind of like a not come hither is like too sexy, but it's kind of like a motioning gesture towards the honey pots, and she's kind of like stroking the air with her fingertips to beckon like the honey over. And I think like the more she does it, we see like these strands of like spider silk. Kind of like when you like if you catch like thread or string like in the right light, like that's you can only see it then, so it's sort of like ethereal, but maybe it's not kind of thing. And the honey pots kind of go like and like sort of like hop a little bit like closer like off of the tray to water. So I think she's gonna try it. Like,
should we see if she's successfully able to bring it over?
Yeah.
So this is going to be a trait roll. So when we roll for traits, we use a die, a d6. That's right, Sid. We're rolling dice and playing Follow Magic, kind of. So we're gonna.
Luke Quaid would have words with you.
Good. I want to have words with him. So we're gonna roll a die, and the results are, as we discussed last time, there's 3 levels of results, similar to like a PBTA game or whatever, Blades in the Dark, things like that, where we're going to have the low result of bad stuff happen when you roll a 1 to 3. There's going to be partial success type things, success with complications for a 4 or 5, and if you roll a 6, you have a success. You only get to roll 1 die, but you do get to add or subtract any traits that are appropriate to this situation. And so if we look at Panya here, what traits do we have which will affect this roll?
I have cantrips. Destitute is a negative trait in lore. I think cantrips is like...
Yeah, and I think cantrips is the only one that will really affect this here, right?
I agree.
So yeah, we're going to roll a d6 plus 1. Now we do need a roll for your party link.
I got a 6. This goes so well for me. I'm so excited.
Oh, nice. I love it. All right. So I kind of like the idea. Oh, so 2 questions. First of all, do you have a roll for your party link that you used, or did you just roll a die?
I went with the one on the document.
Awesome. Good. Did I put it in the document? I did.
We're clever.
How clever. Too clever by far for me, because I couldn't remember. All right. And so, yeah, what does that look like? How does that little honey pot come over?
Yeah. So like we get the honey pot goes like on the tray, and then like Panya like closes her fist like real tight, and then the honey pot like shoots across like the room at her. I think it narrowly misses like a waiter who's passing that way, right? Like it just goes past her face. And then she like leans forward and her fingers like almost miss it. Like there's like moment where it's like, oh my god, it's gonna go as a drop, gonna drop on the floor. But she like manages to catch it like just like that far from the ground. And then she like leans back in her seat and like offers the honey out to Mahi with this like shit-eating grin of like, see, like wasn't that cool?
Yeah, what's Mahi's reaction?
Panya, your tricks are always amusing to me.
What thanks? I mean, they're more than tricks, but I'm glad you like them. Would you like some honey?
Of course, tea with honey tastes far better. Now, let us compare our maps. Because I believe each of us got some kind of map at the end of the last session. I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, so we're going to return to the scene and we'll look at that in just a little bit. So I think we're going to, maybe we'll cut the scene right there or right around there. I think I would like to see Mahi, like you put a little bit of honey in your tea. Is that right?
Yeah. After like 3 minutes, I suppose maybe the tea owner like left us a little like, how do you call this like thing where you have a sound that going through like a time measure?
Timer. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like the timer's up and I like take the tea leaves and we put on some honey and we like share the tea. Yeah, I put some honey into my cup.
And this tea owner kind of gave you this impression that you would only be able to taste the mango, if you were able to discern it, like you needed to have a really good tongue. And yet you're able to taste this mango, like it's filling your mouth with mango flavor, right? And yeah, it's, there's a part of you which is, kind of excited that you're able to taste it. But I think just before we leave the scene, I think we kind of see the table from the perspective of Panya, right? So Panya, you're sitting there, and we see Mahi drinking this tea, and his eyes are like, "Whoa, this is so delicious." And I think on your little honey pot, there's some text on there, and it says "mango honey," right? And and there's also the voice of your mother comes through from last time where she says, it's not going to be that easy. When you were kind of like looking sideways at some honey vendors, and like, okay, maybe I'll take the easy route. And we can just hear her voice. And it's like, nope, not that easy.
I love it because I think like she hears her mother and like sort of mentally she like waves her mother off like, "Wah, go away, mom." And then she sort of looks, she fixates on Mahi again. And she has like an idea. She's like, "Mahi, spirit mangoes are really hard to find, right?"
Excuse me, please repeat.
You know what? I bet I can trick someone into thinking this is like spirit mango honey. And then maybe that'll help you out. I'm really good at lying to people.
Well, if this were that easy, it would be very good, but I need a rather large quantities of those spirit mangoes.
Maybe this should be the first step to finding it. Don't worry. I will use this honey to help you find your spirit mango, for you've been so kind to me. I wasn't expecting to find anyone on this trip who would be able to help me out so much as you have, and I just want to repay you.
That's very nice of you.
I kind of love that line. I didn't think I would find anybody so nice on this trip. And I think right then the camera like cuts, and we can still hear your voice, and you continue to say what you're saying, but it cuts back to our other character here. And we're going to see what happens next. I want to take just a short 3-minute break, like very short. Specifically so I can get the microwave done and then we can move on. All right, we'll be right back.
Tamer, I'm so glad that there was this spot that I could slot into.
Yay! Thanks for making that effort. I know it's hard, as you know. I know,
Yeah.
waking up at odd hours and early.
I was going to say I owe you at least one waking up at weird times. At least one. The sun has risen in the time that we've started playing, which is nice.
I know that feeling.
Mm.
Yeah.
Which means, unfortunately, my tree possum or my window possum has gone away.
Aw,
Yeah.
your friend, your neighbor.
My bestie. He goes from the tree by my window, jumps on our air conditioning unit, and he just sits there and watches me at 2 a.m.
Aw,
Judges me.
cute.
Possums are very judgy. They have a strict moral code.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to be so judgy, but yeah.
That's actually why the Americans put the O in front of possum. That's them judging. It's like, oh. That's why they're called O possums. Holy shit, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Plus.
To say reason we put fucking in front of possum in New Zealand.
Because that's what they do.
They
Wow,
eat all of our
thanks.
birds. It makes me very sad.
Oh, they eat the
That's why-
birds?
Yeah, it's why all of our dumb, stupid birds were like either extinct or endangered because like none of them can fly, so they just get eaten by possums and stuff.
Basically, the dodos of your island.
Yeah, all of them. We're an island of dodos.
I'm going to put on track 1A, and Sid, you let me know if that works for your next thing.
I can make it work. This sounds super Western, which is all I've been listening to. I love it. Okay. So we're doing the gates. And as sorry, I forgot we were playing a game that had rules and I had to pick a prompt. Otherwise, I was just gonna start waxing lyrical.
Well, you can always start with the waxing lyrical and then find what prompt
That's true.
you run into.
So you mentioned that I really, really like, and I want to play off this kind of like shared imagery of the white stone pillars curling around each other with the hold on a sec. I don't know what that is, but something's giving me some feedback. These white stone pillars curling around the looking like the mangroves twisted and gnarled, and looking like the veins and the muscles of Naja's hand and arm. And I think that as Naja nears this pillar, they look up, and again that head kind of tilts, and like a whistle, this like high pitched bird like whistle emerges from under the mask, and it's that kind of whistle in awe of the structure, and it's really, really clear that this is like Naja's first time seeing this. This is not something they're familiar with. This is new to them and exciting. And as they look down, and as their eyes track down from this structure that they're in awe of, between them and the structure, we see like these other. Oh man, they look halfway between the mangroves and Naja, and it's like frozen forms that still wear what's left of their swampy robes, that have like not made it past this point. And Naja sees them and like looks towards the water, sets off towards it to wet themselves down as we saw them do before. And I think as they approach there, they like look into the water, and we see these dark shapes looming underneath, and like an eye poking out of the water, like just the eye staring at, and it's like one of those bigger than it should be deep yellow eyes with the black lips in the middle that like stares. And Naja probably like looks at the water, looks at them, and like maybe like quickly just dips a toe in, and then skitters off away from the water and through the or toward the gates, heading through.
Well, I have a question. Do you think Naja has an encounter with a crocodile at this point?
Have we seen crocodiles in the previous sesh?
We have.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know what tone and stuff we've set for the crocodiles. I don't know what they're like.
Well, we'll see. So one of the things about this setting, as Zedek and Munkau have written it, is although it's fairly agnostic as far as any kind of system, like there is no system here, it really just describes the place. They do have a couple of random tables in that OSR vein. So if you would like to roll 2d6, we can talk about what this crocodile looks like and who it is.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. I'm coming. Okay, 2d6. I'm doing real physical dice these days.
Let's do it.
I got 2 2s, which is a total of 4.
Okay. Awesome. So I think this is actually going to be a crocodile that we saw in the last scene, or at least one that looks very like it, right, in the last session. So, we see this big eye, and, and then Naja dips their toe into the water, right? And, there's a moment where I think we're all kind of holding our breath a little bit, like, ooh, that could be bad, right? And then we see a very slow, it's almost gentle, like it doesn't, instead of like something fearful and big happening, which is I guess what we would expect, we just see this slowly parting of the water as this large form, maybe a couple feet out, from the shore, kind of like breaks the water very slowly and gently. And it's a very large, long crocodile. The scales are all white. But there's 2 stripes of kind of like what you would expect, like green-brown scales that go down its back, all the way down to its tail. And it looks very similar again to this crocodile that we actually saw and there was some interaction with in the last session. But this crocodile, comes up and the eye, that same big yellow eye, is kind of one of them, is staring over at Naja and blinks once or twice. And we hear a voice come from it. And it's a regular voice that we can recognize. And it says, "It doesn't look like your friends quite made it." And it's definitely referring to those other,
the other pilgrims that, and the journey would have no meaning if everyone succeeded.
And it's silent for a second, but then it replies and it says, "Those are wise words. I kind of hope that you can continue to say wise words for some time from now, although I don't know. How long do you have?"
And the voice that we're hearing from Naja is definitely like cracked. It's the voice that you would expect, like a Roman ruin to have. Like it sounds old and strained, like it's collapsing under its own weight. And Naja, I think, even like leans more heavily on that stick, almost moving as like an entire unit, like swaying with the soft breeze through this thing. I would have more time if I could bathe in these waters, but it seems unsafe.
Well, those are, again, wise words. The waters are not always so safe here, unless you have a friend, I suppose, a friend to watch your back. And it winks, maybe it's blinking, but it winks at you with the one eye that you can see. And we hear some more grumbly type words come out of it that are not our normal speak, right? So we hear your and you get the sense that it's introducing itself to you.
And I think it's similar that like the voice that the name that comes out is like almost like a sigh, like an exhausted sigh, but it's Nasha.
Nice. And your curtain, sits there for a few moments, and it really is just kind of like floating there. We can actually see the water kind of, slowly push by it, and it doesn't look like there's any effort being made to move or not move or whatever. It's just kind of like floating on the water. But it says, Naja. And when it says Naja, it says it in that very breathless, kind of wispy way in which you've said that. And it says, it says a lot that the journey is worth it and that it takes effort. A journey that takes no effort is no journey at all. But sometimes we need a little bit of compassion on our journey. We need a little bit of assistance, especially from good friends. And it kind of floats closer to the land, and it's right there on the shore. And it says, please allow me to help you on this journey.
Oh man, I'm super gonna get eaten by this crocodile. That's great. Yeah, so okay, I have a fun thing. So Naja leans their stick against one of the trees and takes their robes off, and as they fall away, like the parallels between them and the trees are so stark, and their skin is like brown and scaly, and like I don't know if you've ever seen a naked 85-year-old man, but like that's like really still like that kind of wiry 0% -1% body fat sort of thing, and it looks unhealthy and unsettling, and all they have left on is this mask, and as they place themselves at the from the waters and say I was ready to meet some trusting souls on my journey, but not one so friendly and not one so soon. And they take off their mask, and when it comes off, their eyes are the same, like yellow of the crocodile eyes. Like it's that same rounded yellow with like the thin oval in the middle. And they step into the water and like sink down until just the eyes and the top of the head, and probably like the hunch at the back are showing.
And Yurkur turns and says, do you intend to swim?
No, I need only to feel the waters through my body. Swimming is a pleasure of the flesh that I will allow myself if and when I succeed.
Then it starts to push itself away from the shore, and you find yourself also being pushed away from the shore. So both of you are floating, in the water, parallel to each other, just a few feet apart, and heading toward the crocodiles. And maybe you've realized that you've left behind your mask and your staff, your clothes, right? And if you turn to see where they are, you'll see them floating just behind you in the air, right behind the crocodile. And it doesn't really feel like it's pulling you or anything. You just feel like you're kind of floating there in the water. You're not swimming. You're not sinking. You're not even floating in the water, really. You're just kind of like in the water, just flowing through it. And that, I think that passes for a few moments, and it turns to you and it says, it just asks, like, is this appropriate? Will you take this help from me?
I think like it's when and the sentences, it's not something that Naja sort of is saying. It's something they're quoting. It's like quoting scripture to them. The forward is the direction we must always travel. As long Yoko, as long as we move forward, I am glad to have your assistance.
And I think that's the last we'll hear of the conversation. But we see that there's humor behind the crocodile, because you say this, forward is always the direction we should be moving, or whatever. And we see that it actually turns to look at you, and you guys are still moving in this forward direction, but it's not facing that direction, right? And it turns, and now it's going backward, and it's in front of you and just kind of looking at you. And again, it winks. And this time you can tell it's a wink because there's only one eye that blinks. You can see both of them, right? And I think we see you guys kind of like fade into the distance, going through these two gates toward the port, which is where we're going to find ourselves next. Was there a trait that you pulled from that scene?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take unflinching.
Okay. Sounds good. So for, one of the things, the only thing that has any mechanics in this setting, by the way, is these random tables, which just describe crocodiles or people or other places. All right. So I think we're going to find ourselves. Hold on just a second. I think we're going to find ourselves in Trader's Island. So I think, the next scene, just to kind of like close that one out, shows the crocodile bringing you here, and just to the side of the shore, and doesn't take you out of the water. You're still in the water, but you're now on the shore of this little island, maybe down at the bottom of these steps, which lead up, these old stone steps, which kind of lead up into the island. And those steps like sink into the water, right? So you're kind of like left on this step, which is like half in the water, right? And it kind of like pulls away from you, and does one more wink, doesn't say a word as far as what we've seen. Maybe it's talked to you on the journey, we don't know. I don't know. But and then it floats away in the opposite direction. So I have some questions. We have the three of you, and I'm curious how we're going to see the three of you come together. However, I kind of don't want to see that scene right now. What I want to see is I want to see the scene with the three of you already on a journey, right? And you guys already do at least know of each other or know each other, right? And I want to see what that looks like. There's going to be one other person you're traveling with other than the three of you. And maybe we don't really hear from this person much, but we see them in the background. And at first, I think we're going to get the impression that there's some kind of guide, like maybe they're there to help you on this journey. But just as quickly, we'll find out they don't seem to be a guide at all. They carry what I think originally we think is maybe like some kind of, like a blowpipe or something, right? But it's not. It turns out it's a flute. Right? It's like a musical instrument that they carry. But I think for the viewing audience, we're going to make some assumptions there at first that later we'll be dissuaded of, right? But other than the three of you, there's this other local person. I mean, they seem to be from these parts. They're wearing like similar dress. And I think we're going to find ourselves upriver, heading toward the heart of the land of the crocodiles. And when we do that, we are going to consult another table. And in fact, let me show you. Here we go. So, this may be a couple of days later, right? And, it's wilderness, jungle, and we hear birds and all sorts of things in the background. And in fact, I'm going to, for now, play track 8S, Swamplands. And I think we find ourselves just on, maybe we see a couple of quick scenes, right? One of, a little canoe going up the river with the four of you on it. Maybe a couple of scenes where you're walking through the jungle itself, right? On small beaten paths, either on the side of the water or maybe a little bit deeper inside. And I love it. Kakra stalking the various little frogs. And we're gonna roll some dice. So far, I don't think, Pavel, you've rolled any dice, so I'm going to have you roll 2d6.
Okie dokie. I'm going to reroll the green ones.
Sure.
Oh, it's box cards.
Okay, interesting. Cool.
So we got the rare result.
I think we see you guys in this boat, right? And our friend there with that we haven't been introduced to yet, we see they've got this big staff and they're kind of like helping guide you up the river. And from behind you, you see somebody approaching, right? Like we can see that there's maybe it's another boat is coming up from behind, and there's some people on it, right? Maybe like two people on the back of this boat. But it's quite a distance. Like you're not even within shouting distance yet, right? And just as that's happening up ahead, we see the river opens up a little bit, and there's this little pool to the side of the river, which is a little bit calm. And maybe we can almost see the water kind of do that like whirlpool thing before it continues downriver. And there's a bunch of people hanging out down there, in the water, half in and half out of the water. They've got little baskets and things. There's definitely some commotion. There's something going on there. But yeah, you guys right now, it's you guys on the boat. Like, either what are you talking about or what do you talk about now?
Naja, could you please explain to me once again, how does playing music help me find invisible spirit mangoes? I'm kind of lost with this part.
It's so good. It's the best stitch up. I love it. The air resonates from our music, and they do a little like whistle. You can almost see the like thick swampy air shiver in front of them. The spirit mangoes are still part of this swamp. They still move with this swamp.
I can do magic with my beautiful voice as well.
I suppose Maki is like using this like long stick to like push the boat as the others are like talking or just playing.
And then Panya like tries really hard to concentrate, and then she just lets out like this burp and like sticks her tongue out at you, Naja.
Panya's my favorite. It's been like 8 months since I played with Panya.
I'm curious what Naja's reaction to that burp would be.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I keep having to think about the fact that like I've covered the face, so like reactions have to be so so large, and I think, I think that this like gnarled and dried hand extends from the robes, and just like a single fingertip out towards Panya, and just like boops her on the nose.
Hey, I'm not a kid, you know.
We've been traveling for some time. Will we be on the river for much longer?
Well, the map doesn't specify if there are any settlements, but I guess I could use a break. We can maybe do some campfire for the night, and although it's a swamp, it will be hard to find some wood, but we can try to do some camp for the night.
So I'm going to put on track 9S, Encounters Slow Drums. So I think this is when you notice that there is that maybe canoe or something coming from behind you guys. And you also notice that up ahead, there's some commotion on this, on that shore where there's that little kind of pool. And the pool there's a little bit of a beach there, like a proper, beach where you could land a craft. You would actually have room to to camp easily. Like you wouldn't be right under a bunch of trees where you don't know what's going to come out at you, especially if you're not familiar with these parts, right? And but there's a lot of people there, right? So you find yourself kind of like surrounded by two unknowns. Your friend with the little flute, who thus far has been relatively quiet, other than playing a couple of notes, kind of like looks back and and points. So maybe they're the ones who actually shows you that something's coming from behind you at this point.
What do we do, Mahi?
Maki looks behind. Do you know those people? I'm asking mostly like the unnamed person with the musical instrument.
Yeah, and I think that person's name is Jai, and Jai turns to you and again doesn't say a word, but just like looks up and just slowly shakes his head, and he looks a little bit nervous. And Jai's a young boy, probably like a young teenager, 13, 12, something. Maybe even younger. It's hard to tell. He doesn't look like he's really hit puberty or anything yet, right? He hasn't like sprouted as you'd expect around that age. So you're kind of not exactly sure how old he is, but he's like prepubescent, right? And but he was hired to you guys, and is well traveled. Like you can tell, like he hasn't complained once about any of the the work or the journey for the last couple of days. But his eyes are a little bit like concerned looking, right? Just kind of open and like, I don't know who these people are, right? Like that kind of look, but doesn't say a word.
Let's take a break on the beach over there. And Maki would like push the boat toward the beach so that it like gets on the sand, because this kind of boat like can go almost on the sand. And he himself will probably like jump into the shallow water and help.
No,
Nadia
you haven't quite gotten there. You're starting to head to the water, and what you find is there's a bunch of people in that little pool area, and like about half a dozen of them are inside the water up to their waist. They're a couple feet from the shore, and there's a couple of more on the shore. And you actually find that it's not an empty beach. There's a couple of tents set up. There's what looks like a little area, like a cooking campfire area, set up for like a dozen people. We see a little bit of a fire already going there, and a little stream of smoke. But what catches your eye the fastest is there is a person who's out there in the water all the way up to their chest. And, she appears to have a bunch of like ceremonial looking garb. I mean, that's what you would guess. There's feathers of different kind. There's a sash that's a very like bright color that looks like it's been dyed, like a bright orange, which stands out here. And she's holding what looks like, I guess, 2 sticks with like leaves and things on the end of them. And her eyes are closed, and she's kind of like doing some kind of either prayer or singing or something. And everybody's like facing that direction. But as you come into this pool, or like you're heading there, a couple of the people who are closer to you, of those people in the water, they like notice you're coming in, and they're trying to like wave you away, like, hey, careful.
So there's some people following us that are making giant nervous, right? Like that's, I think like if someone else can jump in, but I think Panya wants to try and do some more magic.
What's Panya trying to do?
So I think like Panya's only seen one person on this boat, and that's Jai. So I think like Panya sees like the nervousness on his face and like smiles at him. It's like, Jai, come here. Like she goes like towards the end of the boat, and like Kakra like sort of scurries around her like robes and like pops like her head out and fixates her like demonic beady red eyes like on this shape in the distance. And she's like, what's this? I think what she wants to do is like she wants to use like because like Kakra is the domain of like chaos and darkness. So I think what like she wants to do is channel like Kakra's magic, so to make like sort of scary shapes in the water, kind of like sort of like looping in and out like between our boat and the boat that's like following us, to at least like slow them down a bit or deter them from like sort of coming closer.
Nice.
Which I think will look like cinematic and cool, like with with the gentle like lapping water in the stream, and then like sort of intercut with these like illusions of like step into like liquid bodies sort of cutting like against the air as well as the water.
All right. Has Jai seen Kakra before?
Kakra probably like pops up here and there. Yes, so probably has.
Okay. So he probably wouldn't be like scared shitless that suddenly this little rat creature comes popping out with red eyes in your, yeah. All right. Yeah, so you're using, I'm assuming, cantrips here.
Yes, please.
I don't think the other two have to apply, don't look like they apply. So yeah, roll +1.
I got a 4.
Okay. So, and you're facing, like, you're not facing the pool where all those people are, and you're facing the other direction where all that boat is coming up land, right? So I think this is what happens. I think you are completely successful in creating this distraction. What does this distraction look like?
Ooh, yeah. So I think like the river water sounds like it's quite still this evening. So I think what it looks like is, if you sort of get a top-down look at this boat, this inky blackness, like blacker than the water itself, like starts to emanate upwards from the lake bed bottom, and as it sort of coalesces and its shape grows, it like lifts up the other boat a little bit with like the water current, and then this inky black water like sort of like cat head butts like the side of their boat as well, and then like sort of like dives back down again, and then like comes back up, sort of like threatening, but like we could, like, whatever this is could get you, but also like if you just leave us alone, like, and back off.
Nice.
You'll be fine.
So I want you guys to look at the picture on the screen right now. Do you see how there's like a large crocodile and then 2 people on the back? So that is what you are messing with, right? So
nice.
The complication here is that this looks like a proper patrol for the kingdom, right? This is a crocodile knight, right? The crocodile knight being the crocodile itself, right? And then the squires are the 2 that are riding on the back. And so although you've been able to distract them, and they seem to be, kind of like one of the squires is poking their stick into the water to try to, push against this attack that's been done. And the other one you can see pulling up like what looks like, maybe it's a blowpipe or maybe it's a spear, but looks like it's trying to shoot something into the water. These people who you're messing with are kind of like the police, if you will, of Merkurger, right? So that's happening in the back. Meanwhile, you have these people out in the water, and they're trying to prevent you guys. Like a couple of them have walked toward you, and specifically Mahi and Naja on the boat. As the boat's kind of trying to get into the pool, right? And 2 or 3 of them are coming up to you. At first, they were waving their hands, but we see 1 or 2 of them on the shores, and there's a couple of them pulling out bows, right? And, reaching for arrows just to see what's going on here, because this is not something that's supposed to happen. And meanwhile, that person in the middle of the pool who's doing whatever that ceremony is still doing it and seems to not notice you, whatever you're doing. But yeah, what are you guys doing?
I suppose Maki like slows down the boat. He comes he comes here in peace. So slow down the boat so that not to like really like ram anyone, and just like puts the like stick on the boat and just like does, may your scales always still wet. the traditional greetings of this land, or something that someone told him that you're supposed to tell to the strangers?
Yeah. Whatever they told you was the greeting for this land. Let's see if they were messing with you. That sounds
We
like yeah, that sounds like a good little conflict roll. So let's see what the outcome of that situation is. You've got a couple of traits there. Let's see which ones apply.
Well, Maki is very trusted. He shows his face, so he's like very trusted.
Yeah.
But it really depends what is their relation to people being burned, because I don't know, maybe they are aggressive toward people being burned, because yeah, he obviously has like this this hand that is that still bears the mark of being civilly burned.
Right. I don't think it'll come into play this time around. You know, these appear to be workers, you know, that are working some trade, and I think not. You know, like I think you'll even see, like as we scan them one by one, that some of them do have their own, you know, markings or injuries from labor. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think you get the +1 for trusted, and I'm going to give you the +1 for lucky. And let's go ahead and roll a d6 and add 2 to it.
Yeah, I'm lucky. People usually tell me the proper things. I'm going to reroll the red one because that's my color on the character sheet. So I'm going to reroll the red one. Yeah, it's mixed. It's a 5.
Right. Actually, and you get a +2, so you rolled a 4 + 2, right?
Oh yeah. I forgot about lucky. It's a 6.
Yeah. So I think what happens is, you know, you do this kind of motion and you say those words, and I think we see the people with the bows like calm down. You know, the people who are up there trying to steer you away from the pool, you know, it doesn't look like they were trying to push you away. They really kind of guide you so you don't interrupt whatever's happening in the middle of the pool there. And they guide you around, you know, using their hands. They kind of push the boat toward the shore. And what we end up finding here is, I think we have, you know, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a little bit of a scene here and see little vignettes from you guys for this night, because I think this is a fairly calm and resolved scene, right? I think what happens is, yeah, the crocodile knight, I think they have a little bit of umbrage with what you've done, Panya, and I think they come and they give you a fine. I think, Mahi, you have to end up paying a couple of coins to prevent her from, you know, being taken away. And I don't think they accept wood coins here in this situation. But otherwise, it looks like a mining operation. And it turns out these miners are fairly friendly, right? So the person in the middle is, you know, doing a little bit of a ceremony that you guys watch. And she apparently is you know, doing some kind of dowsing where she's trying to find, you know, where the minerals are, right? The river's riches. And you know, and I think it goes well. Like, they're happy with what they found here, and they'll stay here for a few days. And because they're celebrating, they share with you guys a little bit of food, you know, simple food, and a night's stay on the beach. What do you guys do on the beach? I want to know. I want to see like some little scene of everybody, you know, this night. Or, you know, either, and it could be interacting with these people or not. It could be interacting with each other. It could just be on your own. But yeah, where do we see Naja?
Oh boy, I think I want to get involved with this person that's doing the ceremony, and so do you want to paint them up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to say her name is Babru. And Babru is, she looks, I mean, she's a mature woman, you know, definitely on her way toward decline, right? Like you can tell she's past her prime, but she's also has worked for most of her life. It looks like she's got looks fairly strong, and uh, you can just tell that she's past her prime because she's tired. Like she just looks like again she's out here, she's doing her work. She comes out and everybody kind of celebrates, and yeah, she shares a little bit of that celebration, but you can tell that she's here on a job. She's not here to mine. They're here to pay her to find the resources. She's not friends with these people, right? Maybe she has a good working relationship with one or two of them, like the boss, of the operation. But you can tell that she's a little bit distant from them. And she does seem to have some powers that they trust. It's hard to tell if it's real or not, or maybe it's not for you. I don't know. But she does gravitate toward you, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a scene of Naja finishing finishing their morning prayers and standing. And in the same area, I think you mentioned a pool before. Is I didn't write it down. Sorry, what was that ceremonial lady's name?
Babru.
Babru, thank you. Does Babru do this ceremony on land or in the river?
She did it when she was in the river. So you guys were in this river that was going by, and then to the left of the river was this large kind of like outcropping pool, and that's where the little beach is as well. So you guys stayed on the beach, and she was doing that ceremony while she was in the pool. And apparently it looks like, from what you gathered from the people here, she found that there are minerals here in the pool, near the pool, something. And so they're going to mine here, right? This is going to be their mining operation. And it's definitely some of that, like they're using the baskets. Already the next morning, you can see them wake up early. They're using the baskets to like sift some of the sand at the bottom of the pool.
Oh, okay, yeah, great. So like as the sun's sort of breaking over it's still coming through the treetops. So it's still that kind of really dark, yellowy, really early sun thing. Naja finishes their ceremony in the water in that pool, and they stand and they've got that like youthful look again, still kind of like hunched over with that weight, but they have energy and they move fluidly again. And Babru comes out and sees them performing ceremony in that same pool, and they've kind of shared that. And Naja like turns to face Babru and steps back and like leaves physical space for her to like enter the pool and stand across from them. And as they stand across from each other, it's like that mirror game where you are both trying to move together to like imitate each other's movements, and neither wants to move too fast so the other can catch up. And as these workers start sifting the pool around them, but the two groups never kind of interact with each other, and they form like a ring around, and then we have these two figures in the middle, and you can't tell which figure's leading and which figure's following. They're just kind of working together. And then there's a moment where they both just drop their hands to the side, and there's a finality to it. Naja puts their hand out and like rests it on Babru's shoulder, and they like drip water all down Babru's arm, and it's and in that moment I think we see the like tired bags under Babru's eyes have receded a little bit, and the wrinkles that stretch out from the corners of their eyes have faded into their skin. Maybe even scars that they've picked up out here in the jungle have like started to return to that same rosy color as the rest of their skin. or I guess yeah, that sort of like light tan color.
Nice.
Skin. Yeah.
I don't know if I can add anything to that. That sounds perfect.
You sound perfect, Terms.
All right. What do we see Panya do? Like, you know, this can be, again, in the morning, like we just saw the scene, or it can be like the night prior. You know, there's a little bit of definitely the end of the dowsing ceremony where Babru finds that this is a good place. There's a bit of a celebration. So I think, you know, they're probably passing around some, you know, relatively cheap alcoholic beverage. You know, they cook a little bit of meat that they've been saving. You know.
Oh, I'm so torn because I kind of want to have a scene where Panya tries to trick someone into thinking this honey is a spirit mango honey, but also I think it would be really cute to have a scene of Panya playing with some like kids of her own age or something. So she hasn't really like had a chance to like interact with many kids because her village is like so tiny and nomadic. Yeah.
So I kind of think it would be interesting if you tried to convince Babru that you can, like, convince her that you you have this spirit mango honey.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. And she looks super important.
I think I'm going to change the track. What do we want?
I guess I feel like something a bit more lighthearted because I feel like this is not going to like this is super serious.
So let's see here.
These tracks are all amazing, by the way.
Ooh. Let's try 25. I don't know if it's going to hit the right note, but let's give it a go.
I like it. Oh yeah, this is good. This is like when you go and see Galadriel at at the elf hideout.
So when do you approach her?
Yeah.
How do you guys, you know, come together? Or does she approach you?
Oh, this is also such a good question. So let's do like the night prayer. If Babru has engaged Naja in the morning. So I guess perhaps like this is sort of during the festivities after like she's done her performance, maybe. Maybe Panya even like. So I think Panya's probably like quite captivated by her.
Okay.
So perhaps like Panya like what like oh no yes I love that shot of like Panya speedily watching her with like Kakra right like on her shoulder doing like just the same and their heads are like moving in the like the same direction. And then when she like finds an opportunity where like Babru is like not being like engaged by people and stuff in the evening, like Panya sort of like sneaks her way through much like a rat through these crowds to get to her and like sort of maybe like pulls at her sleeve.
Let me ask you a question. When is the first time that you notice that Babru has her own little friend, and what does that friend look like?
Oh my gosh. Ooh, that is a good question. I think it's some kind of gecko.
Ooh, yes.
And It's hard to notice at first because it's presently like wrapped around her neck and cheek, so it could easily be mistaken for like a tattoo. But then when you get closer, you realize there's like texture there and like a surface area there, and it's definitely like a gecko that's just sort of like hugging your cheek and neck.
It's almost got like some chameleon type qualities, right? Like
Ooh,
where
yeah.
it looks like it's the same shade of, you know, her skin tone or whatever. And you're not sure if that's maybe that's just naturally the shade of this gecko. I don't know. But yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think it's the first time like you notice it, and maybe we see you kind of like notice the tattoo, and then we actually see you looking at the eyes, and the eyes kind of blink every once in a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I think like Panya goes to say something, but then like catches this gecko's eye and it blinks at her. And then she blinks back. I think like Kakura's probably like bristling a little bit, like it's like Kakura's little like very ends are like sticking up a bit, and I think Kakura like chitters under their breath quietly. And Panya says to her, You're like me?
And you know, she turns and she says, there are more than a few of us out there. I'm assuming you learned this from your parent?
Yes. In fact, I've been sent on a quest to prove my worth to begin studying properly as a great witch of meriting. Of course, I already possess many great skills. I am no child.
When you say the word meriting, she does like this ward. It looks like a ward against evil, you know, and she says, and she sees you kind of like, you know, maybe react to it a little bit, and she says, "Oh, you know, not that I have any problem with the great witches and wizards of Meriting, but," and she looks around, you know, at kind of the compatriots, right, who aren't really paying too much attention, but she says, Meriting has a little bit of a reputation here, one you may not want to call too much attention to.
Well, what do people say about this? I can take it. It's totally fine.
She breathes like a big sigh, and she says, Meriting is everyone says that the wizards and witches there are from lost Meriting. And when she says lost, you don't get the impression that it's like, okay, I just can't find my map and I don't know where I'm going, right? Lost has this implication of like they have left the path that humanity, the rest of humanity is on, and have explored things that they shouldn't, right? And you know, she sits back and she says, now keep in mind, and she's kind of like pointing at all these workers here, you know, who are, you know, they just look like a bunch of laborers, right? And she points at them and she says, keep in mind, sometimes people are just suspicious and, you know, they have their superstitions.
But I feel they are superstitions grounded in some sense of tactile belief. For I don't know how to explain it, but when I passed through the great crocodile mouths down the river, some days travel, they said that I would not return, which.
And she hears that and she kind of stops and closes her eyes, and we see the two little gecko eyes open, right? And you feel like they're looking at you, right? And we see she stopped breathing as well, right? She's just sitting there, and the gecko looks like it's maybe moving a little bit as it's staring at you.
Like Padya was gonna say something, but then she like shuts her mouth and just sort of like observes like what she's doing. Big wide eyes.
You can feel this flow, right, between the two of you, almost like she's reaching out to you, right? And I think she's giving you an image, right? And you see this image of someone, going through the gates, right? But and it's you, right? But an older you, right? So you can tell it's supposed to be you, but it's kind of it's not who you view yourself as, right? And you're kind of lost in this image, in this world, until you hear that she's breathing again, right? And now the gecko is still, and she's, and she says, you'll be back here. And she stops for a second and she says, twice.
I think like Panya at this point and says, usually the witches of Meriting, they just have this one adventure and then they go home and they stay there forever guarding the city.
She says, yes, that is true. But you are not a witch of Meriting. Not any longer.
What am I a witch of then?
Oh, I don't have the answer for that.
Well,
and this is when you hear people behind, like some of the main boss guy. He's like calling over, and he says, Babro, we need you. And it looks like one of the workers injured himself, in the water, and and she's being called away. She just starts to turn to leave.
And as she does, like, I think Panya just like, but wait, like, do I get to see you again on these adventures?
And she turns and she says, that I don't know. I don't know, my dear. And she does walk over to you, and she points right here, and she says, you need to work on that. You need to open that one. And she looks over at your friends, who are, doing their own thing. And she says, they're going to need that. And she turns and leaves.
I think Panya blushes. But then she like calls out Kakura and she says, Kakura, I don't know what is going on or where I am going, but I'm glad that when I had those visions, you were there. And that I will have you there to guide me always. It's a bit terrifying because like Kakura's a demon of chaos and evil.
Yeah, what does Kakura look like when you say that? Like, what do we see?
It's probably something cute, like she's like cupped this huge giant ass rat in her hands, and then the rat probably like cozies up against like her palm, and then like sort of like cleans its nose, and then like gives her a look like, yeah, of course we're together forever. I own your soul.
Awesome, love it. All right, I want to see Pavel. I want to see Mahi and what Mahi's doing with these people.
I'm not sure if we see Maki interacting with them or with Jai, because I'm looking at the time and I'm starting to think I would like to force some kind of solution over here. Yes. So I think maybe like during the night, as we see like the quick fast forward over the like evening, and then it's like the night, and only like one fire is still burning, and we see like a shadow that is Maki like lean over Jai and like wake him up, and very silently in his deep voice, Jai, we need to go. Where is this place you told me about where people farm corpse honey?
Nice. That is perfect because I know exactly where we're going to go. I want to change the track. So let's see here. Actually, I need you, Pavel, to roll 2d6.
I'm going to reroll the green one again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a 9.
Okay. 9. Perfect. All right, great. So let's grab track 9L, Encounters Lonely Spirits. So first, a couple of questions. Player-wise, what are our time frames here? Right now, locally, it's 2:30, so it's half hour, past 2. How much time does everybody have?
I think it's the latest for me, so I would like to finish with the debrief within 1.5 hours.
Within 1.5 hours from now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Is that appropriate for everyone? Is that too much or too little? I mean, too much.
Too little. Too little for me. I live here now. This game is our life.
I think that works, like hour and a half for game plus debrief.
Okay, cool.
I have brunch in 3 hours, so
got it. So we'll finish in 3 hours.
thank you. No. You're all coming to brunch with me. This is
that'd be great. I wish. So I think we're gonna have this scene at night. There's a full moon, and we're going to see Mahi, you and Jai wandering off. Now, do the other two, are you guys in this scene? Either by, like joining Mahi knowingly or not knowingly?
oh, sorry, go on.
I'm a shitty teenager, so I can be a hindrance or observing, waiting to pull tricks and pranks on people just for a lull.
And I am not a shitty teenager, so I am going to be out of this one for now.
Okay. And Mahi, do you you're okay if others jump in?
Of course.
Cool.
Of course, I was hoping that at the beginning that maybe in the morning they will find like you're gone and follow the tracks. So yeah, jump in whenever you want.
Okay. So I think what happens is, we see you ask this question of Jai, right? And I think we see the fire's low, but it's still a little bit bright, being that it's in the middle of the night. And again, perhaps we catch every once in a while some kind of like full moon type situation where there's some ambient light. But there, we see most of the workers are all sleeping, either on the shore, some of them probably in tents. And Jai turns to you and, you ask that question like, hey, you're going to show me this place, right? And he's holding his little instrument, right? His wind instrument, his little flute. And he has like some kind of a little ring that he wears, and maybe even a couple of them on his fingers. But one of the rings, he taps it against the wood, twice, right? So it goes tick, tick. And, I think we know at this point that that's kind of his affirmative, like, yes. And he gets up very quietly, kind of like rolls his little bedroll and throws it over his shoulder, and starts making his way into the forest, right? And I'm assuming you follow.
Yeah. I think we see like Maki putting on his like a little bedroll and maybe like an extra sack with some other items. But yeah, I suppose as we are leaving the camp, we see that Panya was somewhere over there sneaking and looking after us.
Yeah, totally.
So, I think there's a couple of scenes where we see you wander deep into the jungle, right? And there's clearings. You're following this path, and occasionally it's not like it's a thick jungle with trees everywhere, right? They're kind of sparse, and we can see like the moonlight kind of go through the trees, and we finally find ourselves in what looks like kind of like a big open clearing, right? But there's ferns and things everywhere, like very low vegetation. And then on the edges of this clearing, we see kind of like the larger trees, right? And this is when Jai turns, and he puts his finger across his mouth, and he looks like he's trying to say like, hey, we need to be quiet here. And we can see that he's very cautiously like looking to see where he puts his feet. And you get your way a little bit into the clearing, and he just stops, and he puts his hand back, without even looking at you. He's looking ahead, and we see him lift his little flute, and he points it, like uses it as a way to point ahead. And we can see there's somebody standing in the middle of the clearing. I mean, we just see this kind of like dark silhouette, right? And, I think for us viewing this, like we just see this kind of like dark shape of a person, and it just kind of like sways a little bit in the wind. In fact, we're not even sure if it's a person at first, but it definitely has that outline, right? And it just kind of sways back and forth, and we just see darkness, right? And he turns to you and, looks up in your eyes, and he points like vigorously, like, yes, that's it, right?
Yes, very well. I have the offerings for the ghost. Now start playing to bind it so that it doesn't escape.
And so, he looks a little confused at some of the stuff that you said. I don't think maybe he doesn't understand everything. And he brings up his flute to his mouth, right? And he doesn't play yet, though. Like he puts his mouth right where the little, the mouthpiece is, but you see his fingers kind of make little tapping sounds on the wood. And that form that we saw from a distance is just kind of sitting there swaying. We suddenly see it stop, right? And it kind of like starts to move toward you, right? In kind of like jerky motions, right? And, it's still quite a ways, but it's slowly making its way. And you almost can't even tell at first that he's doing it, but Jai starts making like a very subtle note, right? And then he changes it again, and it's another subtle note, and then another one, right? And they're very slow and long, but this form isn't changing anything about its movement. It's still just kind of shambling over toward you, right, in the darkness.
I suppose we would see Maki step like a couple of steps forward, so that he's like before Jai playing, and he would unravel his sack, take this like a bunch of items wrapped up in like a white linen cloth, and he would like unwrap it on the floor, on the tiny grass, on the low grass, and we would see that there are like very various items. We see like a dagger with like a handle made from like a scaly crocodile scales. We see like some tiny metallic objects, some rings, maybe some other musical instruments, and we also see like a little tiny jar, because from what Maki heard is that you have to like bargain with the spirit with the proper item that somehow can release him, and then he might turn into this corpse honey in as he like leaves this world. So he came prepared to bargain with the spirit.
Right. No, that's awesome. And
I'm not sure if this is okay for me to set like what I want this to be about.
Oh yeah. I mean, whether or not this is reality is a different situation, which we'll find out. But this is what you've heard, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and this is how you've prepared for this thing. I'm going to, let me see which track I want to play here. Yeah, I think it's time to bust this one out. We're going to do 9F. And this one, again, is a little bit louder than some of the others. So I'm going to tone it down just a little bit. So you pull out this, your offerings, right? And we're going to see a couple of confused things all happen simultaneously. So our friend Jai here has a very different situation, like as far as what he thinks is supposed to happen here as you do. And I think it starts coming across very quickly because he starts playing this tune and he starts getting like that tune started very slowly, but it starts getting very fast paced. And it's almost like weird, right? Like, I mean, you see this dark, scary form. And at first it looks like Jai's playing this very calm tune. And no, he just starts playing something which is almost like a jig, right? I mean, it's like dance music, right? It's very excited and moving and flows around. And he's not just playing like the wind part, you can hear his little rings tap against the wood. So it almost sounds like you're getting percussion and you're getting a little bit of this wind instrument. So it feels like a couple of people are playing simultaneously. And what does your part of the ceremony look like? Like, what do we see Maki do here?
I suppose Maki is like his role is supposed to bargain with the spirits. So he like grabs items like one by one, the metallic plates, the metallic rings, maybe some teacups, and he like presents all of them to the spirits and gauges the reaction, because the item should somehow match the spirit who he was in life or how he dies. There wasn't very clear about this part. So he like presents all of them, and he like speaks this like weird dialect that is something from this land, like crocodile tongue, because the crocodile knights somehow deal with the spirit. So he has like merged their tongue, and these words are like very weird. But he has like a little like cheat sheet like glued over here, so that this is
That's awesome. I think what we find here is like the way Jai obviously thinks that the way to capture this spirit is by making it dance, right? And we see parts of that, right? We see the music change pace, and we see this shadow creature form start to kind of dance a little bit, right? But then every once in a while you start talking and you make these sounds and you're offering these items, and it kind of stops dancing and gets distracted, and it looks like it's going to come over to you. And it actually looks very menacing when it's about to do that, right? We get this impression like it wants to attack you, right? And so there's this almost like this fight between the two of you, right? You're sitting there providing this, these things and kind of like getting it to come to you. And it's not dancing anymore when it's coming to you. It just wants to get you. And then, the music's going on and there's this distracted dancing, right? I think this is going to be a conflict roll, and we'll see kind of how this turns out. And yeah, I think, this could be, I think there's a lot at stake here.
I like, I would like, I would totally see maybe Panya getting somehow involved. I don't know, because I totally see that Maki maybe realizes that something is wrong, but he cannot like turn and talk to the boy because that would like break the ritual. So
yeah.
So maybe there is a space for Panya to somehow interact and maybe, I don't know, calm the music, engage yourself. It would be more fun.
Oh, I think that'll be excellent, but that's going to be after your roll, and we see what happens there.
Okay. Yeah. So.
What do we think is? So you had a negative tag of injured, by the way, but I think that's gone by now. I think you've healed, so I'm not worried about that one anymore. But And that was from last session, right? But yeah.
Let's make it fun and like use it the last time. So maybe as I was like paddling the way here, maybe the lake won't open a little bit, and there is like a new bandage with like a little bit of blood on it, and maybe this is like also aggravating the spirit because the spirit like feels it, can sense it.
Oh
So
yeah. I think we see it, smell it, right? We see there's moments where, you know, it's starting to dance, and then we see this shot of you like making this offering, and then the bandage breaking, and kind of like even more of that like red spot. And we see the spirit just kind of like and like turn quickly, and its nostrils are kind of like flaring. We get this impression like it can smell the blood, right?
Yeah. So I think I would be going that I'm definitely basing on my luck that someone told me the right thing to do over here.
Sure.
And that I'm doing this right. So I think I'm using lucky, trusted, and negative injured. So for a total +1, I think it gives us a nice range.
I'm gonna make it a straight 0 because I don't think trusted is gonna play in here, because I think in this case, like, the spirit is unswayed by any personality, right? But I'm gonna give you like lucky / trusted, like for whether or not the information you came across was valid, right?
Even better. I'm rolling the red one.
All right. Ooh, you got a 6.
A natural 6.
So, what is one of these items that that you're offering?
I wish I know a word for it. It's an item that it's like a little pipes that hang on a tiny little ropes. If you put it next to the window, these pipes will like hit each other with the wind, and that gives this like nice
like wind chimes kind of thing.
Yeah, probably.
And there's ones that are metal, but there's also ones that are kind of more like bamboo or wood.
Yeah. So since we are in this ancient time, I think that those are just like wooden ones.
Okay, I'm gonna change the track here to I'm gonna change it to 9M. It says encounters melancholy. In case you don't have letters on yours, I know I sent. So, you know, we see this back and forth where the spirit is kind of attracted to you, but then gets distracted by the music. And I think at a certain point, you know, Jai is struggling. We can see that he is confused by what you're doing, and he's worried by what you're doing. And he starts playing louder and more excitedly. And the spirit starts to get distracted by him and starts doing this kind of like dance, and is just dancing and dancing, right? We can tell what Jai's trying to do. Jai is trying to tire the spirit out, and he's going to successfully be able to do that, right? Without you distracting it enough that it attacks you, right? Mm-hmm. Based on, you know, the result of our conflict. I'm curious though, does Panya see this?
Yeah, I think Panya's for sure like hiding in some kind of like shrubbery, watching this all go down, like with her nose just over it, and like probably, or I don't think she's seen. I think she's heard stories of like the spirit realm, and she's heard stories of ghosts and spirits, and probably from Kakura and from Jota.
Yeah.
But this is the first time she's seen it like in person.
So I think this, you know, we see her watching this scene as well, right? And finally, we don't even, I don't know if we have an impression of how long it goes. I think even Maki, you get entranced a little bit in the music, and like your ceremony that you're performing, you start to realize you're not doing it anymore, and Jai is sitting there getting more and more excited with the music, and it's going and going. And I think all three of you kind of like lose track a little bit of time, right? And
since we said that on our wine chime, I suppose I'm just like standing there hanging it, and the wind blowing, just like play this like extra tunes.
And I think, you know, we hear those, like the chimes going, and suddenly that's all we hear. All we hear is the chimes. We don't hear the music anymore, right? And we see, like in the sky, there's a little bit more light. Like it's almost like dawn, right? Like the sun hasn't come up yet, but we can see it's probably starting to come up into the sky, or getting ready to. And we see Jai on the ground, exhausted, right? He's slumped over, his his pipe in one hand, and he seems to be breathing hard. And we just only hear kind of this chime sound, but all of you are awake and watching, and you see this spirit, which, I mean, it looks like somebody who's died long ago, right? I mean, some of their flesh is missing. There's bones that are showing. I mean, we would probably refer to this as like a zombie or something, right? And it's just sitting there, like, and you can see Jai sitting across from this thing, and they both just look exhausted, right? Jai looks exhausted from playing, and this thing looks exhausted from doing its dance or whatever. And it's just sitting there. But we do see, and this is when Panya notices, there's, I think, we see this kind of quiet stillness and hear those chimes, and we see Panya's face, and there's like a little bee that flies by, right? And, and maybe she's watching it, and we see it fly over to this shadow creature, and it like lands in it, right? And we see it's actually surrounded by some of these bees, and they look like they have a home in this thing, right? There's, they are inhabiting it, right? And that's where you can see a little bit of like, maybe it's honey, maybe it's, I mean, it's hard to tell. Like it could just be like gross stuff coming out of it, right? But yeah.
So who do you want to take over?
I don't know. I mean, you get the sense, Panya gets the sense that this is what she's looking for, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I think like Panya's eyes light up when she sees that bee and sort of puts two and two together, and I think she almost feels like an intruder on all of this, because she's just been this passive observer watching the dancing and the music. And I think like she almost feels like if she steps through into their reality, like it'll shatter and break. But I think she like delicately like picks up her robes enough so she can sort of like step through the scenery here, and sort of like starts to tiptoe closer to like this body with these bees, and probably looks over at Mahi to like almost ascertain his consent for her presence being here.
Yeah, does Mahi, I mean, what do you look like? Like, so Panya's looking over at you, kind of like, is it okay if I'm here? Like, I'm kind of interrupting, right? Like, what is Mahi's reaction?
Yeah, Mahi is kind of like, I hope I could. He was hoping that he would make a nice surprise for her when she wakes up. Aww. But it's clear that he has no idea yet how to actually harvest the corpse honey. He done the ritual, but he hoped that the spirit will somehow be gone and that the jar will fill with corpse honey. And he's like, do something. Like he's still standing with this like wind chime for the last sounds, and it's clear that he doesn't really have an idea like how to collect it now.
I think this is like legitimately the sweetest thing anyone has ever done for a character of mine, and also the grossest thing. I love it. I mean, it's kind of perfect too, because Tanya probably does know how to harvest it, or has at least been told how to harvest it. Question is, how does one actually go about harvesting it? Ooh. Okay, I got
So
some.
I think you have a vial, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Ooh, okay, yeah. I think like Panya takes out this vial. And much like when she was trying to coax like the honey to come to her. Oh, yeah, I think we see Famnegjarta. He's like this spider with this like big bulbous back kind of things and the long, like gross spindly legs and like red stripes down it, emerges from Panya's robes. And she holds out this vial. And I think like Famnegjarta like starts rubbing his little spidery legs together. Kind of like how cicadas like rub their legs together to make like sound to attract things like over. I think Panya two legs starts making like zzz, like bee noises. And she like holds out this vial with this like look of hope and like also a little bit of fear and excitement as she tries to like lure these bees like toward her vial. And because Famnegjarta is a demon who has domain over, it's almost like the antithesis of Kakura. Like Famnegjarta looks over heart and healing and truth.
And like part of the intention is to pull the honey as well, not just the bees, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we see kind of like the honey that's just kind of like gooey, dripping on this thing. We kind of like see it start to like pull up a little bit as you're able to, and in this case, your demon is kind of like pulling this thing out, right? And we can see it like it's almost like it goes into a thread. Like we see this one little thread go from there into the vial, right? And the thread looks super thin, right? Just like a spider web. But we see it hit the back of the vial and like kind of like, splatter, honey there, right? And although it's just a very thin thread, we see the vial like slowly start to fill up. And as that's happening, we start to see Jai, finally start to revive a little bit, and he gets up on his two legs and he's leaning against his flute there, and kind of like looks up and is seeing what you're doing, and shaking his head like yes, and he looks up at the sky and kind of like looks at the light that's starting to glow, and I think he looks at the creature, and we see it move a tiny bit, like just kind of like a shoulder move a little or a finger move a little. And, he's looking at your vial and then kind of like nods and turns to go back the other way. And he doesn't leave you guys behind, but he goes to the edge of the clearing. And then, he's sitting there waiting for you. And I think you fill the vial, right, with this corpse honey. And the creature is definitely starting to get up and move, like not get up and move yet, but is starting to get released from its it's exhaustion or the spell or whatever.
I think as soon as the vial feels like Panya drops to her knees and is just like, I think she's overcome like with like quite wrecked sobbing, and she's just like, I can go home.
And I think we get a little sense. We get words from your mother. We hear them, and when she said it's not that simple, right? And in the past, she said it's not that simple, and it just sounded like you were trying to find the shortcut, right? Like, oh, corpse honey, well, maybe I can just use that honey. And it's like, nah, it's not that simple, right? But we get a very different sense of the words this time around, right? And I think we see this shadow, corpse creature. We see it kind of slowly get up, but it looks almost like forlorn, kind of like an animal that's tired or something. It's not trying to get you. It's not trying to come toward either of you. It's just trying to like go home, right? And we see it turn, and it kind of like on hands and knees at first, and then slowly gets up. It kind of shambles back the way it came toward the center of this clearing, right? And in fact, as the light is starting to get a little brighter, we see its shadowy form start to almost become translucent. Like you can't really see it as well. It's almost starting to disappear in the day, right? Yeah, I think we're going to end the scene there.
Awesome. I think the other thing I want to add is like,
yeah,
when Panya looks up, like she tries to act something like an adult and all that kind of thing, but she looks like she's 6 years old, and she's just like bawling at Mahi with like, you're the kindest, nicest person I've ever met in my life, and I didn't think I would meet anyone like you. And I promise I'm gonna stay and make sure that you get your spirit mango, and I will use all of the magic in my powers and everything to make sure that you also realize your dreams.
Yeah, and maybe we see like Maki the kid just like hug you like nicely. Come, let's go. Let's leave this place where the spirit lives.
So we left Singapore and came here. We fast forwarded, through some of the journey, and I'd like to go back a little bit, but let's take a little break. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll jump back into it. Yeah, like 7 after the hour or something, like 5 minutes. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I only have one fictional thing to add, which I love that that Mahi is after Spirit Mango, knowing what I know about Spirit Mango from the past game, because Family Yeta is all about like truth and that kind of thing. So I'm delighted that I can repay some of the thing that was gifted to me.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I kind of want to see. I think what we're going to do is we're going to jump back for a moment, back to, well, one of two places actually. So we were in Singapore, right? When we like that's where we saw the tea house, and where your crocodile friend dropped you off, Naja. So that's one spot we can go. Like I kind of want to see, I want to see what hints we have as to where Naja wants to go. And I have ideas about the spirit mango. But there's also, like, we could either go, we're also a little bit short on time, so I don't want to take too long here, but there's also another spot we can explore. So, we could have you guys meet there at Singa, or we could have you guys meet at Sajaya Town, which is a town upriver, which is kind of on the way to where you guys are, you would have passed on the way to where you are now. So I kind of want to see the scene where you all meet and find that your journeys, are kind of one and the same, right? But I guess I want to ask, you, Sid, do you have thoughts on how you want to see this journey go for Naja?
No. Does it make your life easier if I do?
Not necessarily. I just don't want to. I don't want to push too hard in a direction. If you have thoughts on where you want that direction to go,
push me, James.
Okay. And given that this is kind of like the last session, I mean, 2 of 2. What kind of endings? I guess we can look at running into something which is what's the right word? A difficult task, like dealing with something which is, possibly hard to overcome. Or do we just want to kind of play, just the exploration game, which is, I think, what we've been kind of doing, right?
I really am enjoying the exploration game. I'm loving like touching all these lovely swampy fantasy things. It's beautiful.
Cool. Anybody else have thoughts?
My only thought is that I'm not sure if having a flashback of how you met is interesting at this stage. Maybe something else would be more interesting. Just my thought.
So I have
helping Naja with something. Would be better than us just meeting and deciding to go this way.
Right. And yeah, I don't think I was thinking of just you meeting and going that way as far as the, as far as that meeting. It's kind of more like it would give us a direction of why, the strong why, and how you guys are carrying out the rest of this this journey. Let's do this. I have thoughts. So let's play with a place. And it's gonna be here. So this is, I think, well, let me ask you guys a question. This is going to be a town that's out here, Murkur Sajaya town, and do you want to see this location just before you went out or just after? Like you said, we could already just play like, let's continue this journey. I'm happy to do either one.
I really don't know. I said the last stage. I leave this one to you guys.
What are you thinking, Naja?
I'm thinking that I spoke up last time as well, and I don't want to monopolize things. I think there was a really good moment of like growth in Panya and Mahi's story there, and I think I'd prefer to see that move forward rather than backwards.
I think that's cool. I think that's really smart. So yeah, let's do that. So I think we just saw this scene, right? And in fact, hold on, let me grab a track. I'm going to grab 3C, crowds and crocodiles. So we just saw that scene transpire, right? And I think now we come to seeing this little town, right? And it's a town on the side of the river, right? In fact, half of the town is over the river, right? We see a whole bunch of kind of like piers and buildings that are built over the water, right? Using posts and things like that. It's elevated, right? And half of the town is also kind of above this long shore as well. But even that part of the town tends to be built up on stilts, maybe because the water here comes and goes. I don't know. But, you can see it's a bit of a bustling town. Like this looks like a fairly large location. There are, these little houses kind of as far as you can see into the shore here, into the jungle. At a guess, there's got to be a couple of hundred people living here. And that's a pretty big location. So far, you've mostly traveled through bits of wilderness, right? And so suddenly finding this in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of this river path, lots of crocodiles, some on the shore, some walking with people. In fact, one thing that you notice is there's quite a healthy relationship here between some of the people and the crocodiles, right? You can see, one woman walking next to a crocodile, and they're both laughing, like as if they're old friends, right? You kind of got the impression, when you came to the first town, that the crocodiles looked like, at first you think, okay, maybe animals, and then it looks like they rule the place, right? Like there was a deference. People would kind of like step back or out of the way, or you'd see people carrying a crocodile in a, in some kind of device. But you get the impression here that those lines are a little bit blurred, right? Some of these people, they just look like friends, right? Or maybe even more. Who knows? And I say this because you see a couple of children run by laughing, little children, right? They're like toddlers. And, although they look like humans, I mean, they definitely, there's scales on their body as well. So, it kind of calls into question, like, what's going on here, or are these crocodiles, do they transform into people? You haven't seen anyone do that, right? But yeah, curious. So we are in Merkur Sajaya town, and we have some story prompts here. I would actually like to see somebody grab one of them.
I think I've got one.
Okay.
I'm going to take a glimpse of soaked relics locked underwater in gold cages. I think there's like I think we see on the shore there's like there are these small like statues of birds. They look like they're carved from wood, really, really intricately carved. They look like these tiny little songbirds, and they sit in inside these gold colored, maybe gold inlaid cages, but they seem heavy. The cages, and someone walks them to the shore and like casts the cage out into the water, and as they bring it back in, they like reel it back in on this chain, this big, thick, heavy chain. And when they get the cage back in, as soon as it breaks the surface, we hear the sound of the songbird ring out, and inside the cage is this little live bird that like flutters around the cage and twitters and tweets. And I think Naja like reaches out for one of them from like so far away, reached out to them in this like sense of companionship, and we see Naja's hand and the bird in the same shot, and you can see, and one of these like still wood carved birds, and we can see it's that same like material, it's the same look, and I think these birds are like literally carved from the pilgrims that that freeze out in the swamp, and there's even through the mask, like the way the shoulders fall and like the head tilts downwards, there's this real sense of sadness and loss for Naja. And I don't think that's like, I think unflinching being one of the traits, that's been like a really, this is probably the first time Naja's really shown that like sense of loss and fear with the group.
Nice. I think like we see that, and then I think during that kind of like, I don't know if reverie is the right word, but during that kind of that moment, I want to say that some part of Naja is exposed, right? Like a bit of the arm or something like that. Something that would be seen by somebody else, right?
Yeah, definitely. That like hand reaching out is like fully exposed and
right. And I think we see somebody in the background, right? Someone we haven't seen before, and they look, and they're definitely like seeing your arm, and hand goes up to the mouth, and we see them turn and run off, right? They're obviously very interested in that, and they're going to tell somebody, right? I think we're going to return to that in a second. What about you guys?
I could fully go and try and meet some locals to try and find some spirit mangoes.
Yes, I think that's perfect. So, meeting locals is another random table. So there's a table in the game called People of the Death Rolled Kingdom. And I want you to roll 3d10.
3d10 can do. And you want it not
yeah, don't sort the dice order, and then that way we can see, like, we'll just get some random order of numbers.
Ooh, a 10, a 3, and a 1. In that order.
Okay. So I think you're walking down these streets, and maybe we see you. Like, I think we want to get an impression of what you're doing, right? You're asking about the spirit mangoes, right? And maybe we see a couple of, questions to people that don't pan out, right?
Mm.
And there's somebody who, seems like he's paying attention to you from under one of these pavilions, under one of these buildings, and he's just kind of like leaning against one of the pillars, one of the stilts that's holding up this building. And next to him, he's holding a very large bladed saw, but like the kind of saw you would use to like cut down a big tree, right? And so he's got that kind of in one hand. And he calls over to you and he says, "Hoi, hoi, I heard you're looking for spirit mangoes."
I might be looking for spirit mangoes.
He says, "You're in luck. I know where to find them, as you can see." And he points at his big saw, right? And he's like, I work nothing but in the forest. I know where there are secret groves of spirit mangoes."
Are you sure about this?
Oh, I'm 100% sure.
Very well. I suppose you can accompany me out to these groves.
I would love to do so, but my wife would hear nothing of it. I have to go home, but and also I need to pay my debts. I owe somebody a bit of coin, you see. But listen, if you pay me a couple of coins, I will direct you to a grove. I swear, a grove of spirit mango.
Oh no, am I gonna give this poor guy who's just trying to help out some fake money? Oh. Yeah, I think Panya reaches out for her purse and is like, "Oh yes, no, of course. I would never ask you to do these things for free." And then we'll reach in her coin purse for some wooden coins that look gold.
Is she goldifying them right now?
Yeah, she is goldifying them right now.
All right, let's see what we get.
I will roll with cantrers. Do I take a negative for being destitute?
I want to say yes.
Yeah, because if I get found out, I've got nowhere to I can't do anything. Yeah. Apart from lie more about how I have this really amazing mango honey, and it has a lot of curative properties. I got a 4.
Okay. So, you feel your magic do its thing, and you pull out these coins, and you see his eyes widen quite a bit. He's got this greedy look on his eyes, and he says, well, I mean, that might be barely enough. Like, he's obviously lying. Like, that looks like more than enough. I mean, assuming he thinks it's real gold, right?
Yeah.
And he says, but look, I'll do you a favor. Just go, you need to go one day upriver, and you have to keep your eyes open. There's a small tributary, a little stream that comes out between large rocks. It comes over, into the river. It pours directly on the river, a little waterfall, if you will. And there's beautiful purple flowers there. And if you climb up there and go down that stream, I swear to you, where the stream comes out of the rocks, that is where you will find a grove. But you have to have the sight. Not anybody can see them. And he's already like grabbing them out of your hand, right? The coins.
Yeah. I think like as he does, like Pan just like turns her head like into her shoulder, and like closes her eyes, and I think like she silently asks, like from the Yota to like reveal what's true, like reveal what's in his heart. Like is he being truthful? And he like tells her this. Is this heart like a burgundy black color of lies, or is it like sort of soft and warm and light and pure?
Yeah. And I think Cockra takes a second, and we see this guy like grab the coins, and he's holding them like and looks excited, right? And Cockra's like, no, this guy's heart is black, right? This guy's a bastard. And I think the way the scene transpires is we hear some shouting, and the guy looks worried and kind of like looks around, and is suddenly, you see yourself surrounded by three, rough looking people, right? I mean, rough meaning like they look strong, and not strong in like the laborer sense, more like strong because they know muscles is how you get certain kind of shit done, right? Mm-hmm. And, there's one woman and one man, and they're like on both sides of this guy and grab his arms, right? And they just look like the muscle, right? And then there's this slightly wiry looking woman who walks up, and she says, she looks at him and she says, "Time to pay up, friend." And he's like, no, I have the coins right here. So question for you, how are those coins going to look? Are you keeping them gold, or do they turn wood?
Don't ask me these questions.
Only the tough questions in Merkurger.
He's a lying bastard, and he just tried to get one over on me. And I think, like, from Tanya's perspective, it's because I am a child, and everyone, I'm so used to people just like, it's me, I can't do anything, and taking advantage of me. So I think, like, yeah, if he's lying to me, I owe him nothing. So I think, like, Panya wrinkles her nose, and then, like, yeah.
He opens his hand, and he's like, no, I have the payment. And, we see these wooden coins, right? And, he looks down in disbelief, and he looks over to you and kind of like shoots you a bit of like a dark look. But, the wiry one is like, just shakes her head, and she says, she kind of like looks at you, she has the two take them away, and she's like, I'll deal with them momentarily. And she looks at you and says, what kind of scam was he trying to pull on you?
The same as Gauntlet. Everyone is trying to pull around here. He told me he knew where spirit mangoes were. And he was definitely lying to me. I can see through people, I think she says that as I'm like, don't you try and do the same to me, buddy.
And she starts laughing, right? And she's like, spirit mangoes, that's just a magnet. It's a magnet for scam artists. You can't trust any of these people. Look, if you really want the mangoes, you need to go talk to Arim Sir. Arim Sir, she knows where to find these things. She's a purveyor of all sorts of artifacts. And she just points over, she says, like, 2 buildings over that way, and you see there's actually like a building on the edge of one of these little streets, and it's a nice looking kind of structure, like nicer than the rest of them, right? I mean, it looks like more well made, right? And, she says, look, in my youth, I pulled the same scam. I probably made half of my fortune trying to sell spirit mangoes, but I won't pull that on you today, my friend. No, go in peace. You helped me find this rapscallion, and she points over her shoulder. She says, he owes me a bit of coin.
I think Panya curtsies in return, like with her big like robes that are a bit like muddy and rough right now. But she curtsies and says like, and I think you have also like given me quite the inspiration. I'm an aspiring entrepreneur myself. Thank you.
Well, maybe we can talk business one of these days. And I think she definitely like turns and starts to walk away, but turns back and says, just look me up over in the other side of town if you need to. My name is Mamoon, and maybe we can be of service to each other.
I think Panya nods, and like as she and Mamoon depart, she says, like, I can teach you the coin trick,
And yeah, she gives you like a bit of an appraising look, and she kind of like looks you up and down, and you have this impression like does she know that you have these powers or not? Like you're not sure. Like there's definitely, this is someone who's been around for a while, right?
Either way, Panya is crushing on her very hard.
She's a beautiful woman, and not very young, but she doesn't look like very old either. Just like mature, and there's like a bit of a smile that plays around her eyes, a little bit of a dangerous smile that plays around her eyes, I should say, but nonetheless.
Yeah, Panya for sure like goes to cock, like, I want to be you when I grow up.
She gives you a little, like just before that, she gives you a little bit of a wink and then turns and walks off. And there's like a swagger, right? It's definitely like that kind of like this person's a badass, right?
Awesome. I definitely scurry over as fast as I can to Mahi to relay that he needs to go and talk to Aryam Sir right now.
So, Mahi, we're going there?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do this. I'm going to play 13, track 13. Aryam Sir, archaeologist. And let's change the picture here. So, I think there's, and it could be the three of you if you'd like, right? So everyone can be in this scene. But Mahi, I think you come up here, and Aryam Sir is a very old-looking crocodile.
Mm-hmm.
Is missing a couple of limbs as well. One is bandaged up, another is scabbed over. You can see scars like everywhere, right? And when you come in, the first thing that she does is she turns to you and she kind of chuckles, right? And it sounds like a really throaty, kind of thing. And she says, what can I do for you?
Aryam Sir, I heard that you were a famous adventurer in your youth. I look around and I see many of the prize relics.
And there are artifacts everywhere, shelves worth of stuff, things hanging from, strings and ropes from the ceiling. Behind her are a couple of boxes and baskets, some of them like piled high with different kinds of things. I mean, you would almost think that in some ways, some of it looks like junk, right? Like pieces of artifacts, but there's gems and other things mixed in. Like it looks like this combination of junk and like precious items, right? And her eyes narrow a little bit, and she says, you know, were is a hard word to get used to. You know, when you said you were an an archaeologist, right? Or and she says, but that's okay. I have dealt with many people in my time, and I have learned to be very forgiving in my old age. So I'll let it pass this once.
Oh, I meant no disrespect. I merely meant to point out that you are very knowledgeable. And as it happens, I have this scrolled map over here, and he will just like take this thing I got from Puri, like unroll it, put it on the table. This map shows me where I need to go. However, I'm missing few orientation points. It's very hard for me to know which length of the river does this map actually refers to. Maybe you would be willing to help me orient this map in proper way so that I can find whatever I'm looking for. And I promise I will return with good stories to share over a pint of tea.
Well, I do like tea. You know that much at least about me. And she has one of her servants, you know, there's a couple of people around there, and one comes up and grabs the map from your hands and brings it over to her so she can, you know, look at it. She doesn't have the arms to hold it anymore. And, you know, she looks at it a little and says, I have a feeling you want more than just a few mangoes.
That's correct assumption.
But why? What is it that you really seek? What do the mangoes give you that you can't get from some other easier to acquire fruit?
Agents of Kraching don't question their master. We follow the orders. Master said, find me the mangoes. That's what I'm going to do.
I see. And I think unbeknownst to the rest of us, right? I think, you know, we see a small cat in the corner of this shop, you know, perched up on one of the shelves, you know, kind of in between these two artifacts, right? And so far, it's just been kind of like, you know, looking like it's sleeping or something. And its head kind of pops up and watches you, right, as you say this, this agents of Kraching. And I think we catch RM Sir kind of give a quick look over to that cat and then back to you again, right? And I don't know if we notice this like the rest of us, but that's something that happens. And RM Sir says, yes, that is that's truly very dedicated of you, because spirit mangoes are not easy to come by. In fact, they usually lead one to, well, and she kind of like looks over and there's like a skull, you know, on the edge of like the dais that she's lying down on. And, you know, she looks directly at that skull and she looks back at you and she says, in fact, I think that was the last individual who went looking for spirit mangoes that I know of. Are you sure you're ready for such a quest?
Of course, my luck was always with me. I believe it will be with me this time as well. I have come a long way. If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't have embarked on this journey.
Okay. Well, then I can get you what you need. But I do have to say it will not be without its risks. And she nods to one of her servants, and you know this young woman, you know, comes out and gives you you know, a little scroll or something, and it looks like it's got a seal. It's got like RM Sir's seal on it, And she says, there's a boat outside. There's a couple of kegs. The kegs will get you through the wall. It's a small ruin. And she has the servant mark where it is on the map. And it's actually very close to that location that you are supposed to get to. And she says, go there. You will find, from what I understand, a little bit of a library. And there will be books in there. Bring those books back to me. And I will give you all the spirit mango you desire.
Very well.
She like the conversation doesn't quite end. She says, I see you don't trust me, and I understand. I do not take that as an insult. It shows a bit of your character. It serves you well to be weary. And she nods to another servant, and the servant comes out with a basket, and the basket is empty. And it's a small basket, and she puts it next to your face. And Arim Sir says, take a bite so that we may cement this deal.
Well, I suppose Maki just like moves his hand like if there is something to grab in the basket, and like try to grab it.
And I think you feel it. You feel something there, right? Your hand bumps up against, and it feels like it could be a mango, right? It's an object on that basket.
Yeah, I take a bite.
And you can feel the mango juices. It doesn't taste different than a regular mango, but it's a delicious mango. And you feel it suffuse your body, and you feel kind of like a vibration, like a hum, come over your whole body. And Arim Sir says that bite is not easy to come by, but I want you to trust me. And there's more where that came from. And the servant, like, I don't know if you still have it in your hand. I think you see the servant like pull it out of your hand and put it in the basket and walk back off that area.
And I totally imagine that in the basket we see this like invisible. Nothing is visible except like the place where I like took a bite, because the inside is visible. Just the skin.
Oh yes,
is, like,
I love that. Yeah, that's fantastic. And that buzzing that you feel, you still feel it, right? Like the outside of your skin feels like a little bit sparkly or something, right? It's hard to describe. It's not anything you've felt before, right? But that doesn't go away. And I don't think it goes away for a while. But yeah, it's marked on the map, this location. And you're given a boat. You're led to this boat with kegs, and those kegs are full of blasting sulfur.
Yeah, sounds like cool.
I think we see the cat follow as well. Like, I don't know if the rest of us see this, but, as you get into the boat and you're shown the way, in the distance, we see this cat kind of watching, right? So I have a question for you guys. We are at 47 minutes after the hour. How are we with time, Pavel?
I'm slowly falling asleep.
This track probably doesn't help. But it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, so even though we are so close, I think we can like describe it in the epilogue and just like end up here, unless you guys wanna keep playing.
Well, I'm happy to do this. If we want, we can do a little bit of like I've got a little bit more time. I don't know if you guys do, because we can also do this thing where we kind of do an epilogue and see where Mahi's journey ends.
Mhm.
But we can kind of also explore, like if you guys want to keep playing, we can do that as well. Like, what do you think? Or should we just epilogue for everybody at this point?
I guess for me it depends on Naja. 'Cause I have my corpse honey, so I'm good to epilogue it out here, or I can play for a bit more. I've got to do a bit more work before I can rest for the evening. But I can always work late into the can burn the midnight oil. It's totally fine. How's Naja feeling?
No, I'm happy to epilogue out. Like I don't think that I need to like hit a full arc to feel really satisfied with this.
Okay.
I will talk more about it in debrief, but yeah.
So let me choose a track here. Actually, let me ask you guys a question. Let's do an epilogue where we go round table, and let me know what kind of mood you want to have, and maybe there's a track that fits that. Does somebody want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I need like Indiana Jones something track.
Let's do I don't know if this is going to be the right one, but let's try it. Do you want something with a little bit of punch?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Let's try 9C Chase. All right.
Wait, I need to like
no
spin up.
Yeah, it takes a second.
Yeah. So I think the camera zooms on this like some like ruined temple, which looks like ziggurat maybe, and it's like nice and calm. I suppose it's like the middle of the day. Sun is high. There's no one moving around it. And then the scene turns into like a really big action scene. Something explodes. Stones are falling back from the ziggurat, and we see like from this like hole, Maki just like jumps in with like a bunch of books. He's running in the front. There are some people like a really like tribal people with like tattoos and like wooden spears, following him, running, shooting pipes, and he's like jumping and dodging, and he like jumps on like a piece of wood that he left earlier, so that he skates on all the steps down, gaining speed, and they are like slowly left behind, and then it turns into like a chase for like some high grass, them and Maki, and finally Maki like reaches the boat where like Naja and Panya are waiting. And we like sail away as they are like realizing that as all of those indigenous people like come to the shore and are to shoot the blowpipes at us, and then we do like a smash cut to delivering these books to Maki, and what happens is maybe then we will see like a very weird side, because maybe we will see like Maki alone with a boat, and the boat looks like totally empty, nothing there, and he's like pushing very hard this boat with this like stick, and after a moment the camera like zooms down that the boat is actually like super submerged, like there's like a ton of stuff on it, And this is like left like a hint. And the boat is like loaded with the invisible mangoes.
Love it.
That's amazing.
It's awesome.
That is so good.
All right. Does anybody? Yeah.
I can go.
Do you want any particular music?
Yeah. Let's go for something like jovial, like tea housey kind of like ambiance.
All right, let's try 05.
Awesome. Ooh. Yeah, perfect. So I think this takes place at the tea house that Panya and Mahi visited all that time ago. This is quite far in the future. And Panya is around like this little fireplace. I think it's sort of on the cooler. It doesn't get super cool here in these parts, but it's like on like the wintry end of the seasons here. And Panya is dressed like in I think gone are the robes, and it's more like sailor garb. And he's like looking quite tan, and he has like a couple of scars and stuff like on his limbs, and his hair is like pulled up into like a big like a messy black bun. And I think like someone taps Panya on the shoulder. I think it's probably like a small kid. And it's like big wide eyes like at Panya, like, are you the pirate of Meriting? And Panya laughs and it's like, child, I have been many things in my time. I have been many titles. I've been the pirate of Meriting. I've been the prophet from afar. I've been the spirit tamer of the downlands. And some have even called me God. But we spend so much time defining ourselves. Downland, upland, left, right lands. But what truly, genuinely matters, child, is that you are honest to yourself. And that you are kind to yourself as you change and grow. To discover who you are as you wander through this life and through these lands. And when you do, child, remember to always forage with honesty, warmth, and kindness. That first one is the most important of all. Always keep your eyes and mind open, both to wallow in the majesty of what reality has to offer, but also to watch the shadows that hover just over your shoulder, just out of sight. And, above all else, when you journey to wonderful lands, all you need is a handful of wood and a good story to tell.
Love it. Yeah, I almost imagined her saying, all you need is honesty, and like flip a little gold coin over to the kids.
Ooh, yeah, Panya probably does like hand off like the bag of wood.
It's fantastic. Awesome. Does Naja want a specific track? Or the rest of this?
This one's actually really good. I might just roll with this one. It's good. I like 05. So I think Naja, we see continuing through the swamp, and they stop and they pull a canteen from their side and pour some water into a cupped hand, and one of these like small songbirds that we saw before flies and tries to land on their hand, but it can't grip because its talons are all like fused together and stiff. And so as it hovers like a hummingbird, it like drinks from the water. And as it drinks it, those talons release and it can like land and rest for a bit. And I think like in that moment we see like that the bird's got this like big red flash down its beak, which looks like Naja's mask, and there's that the real similarity in their appearances there. And Naja like dusts it off so that it takes flight again. And they say, no rest, my little one. We have hours to go before we sleep. And they keep stepping through this swamp, and then they reach a section where like the trees stop, and I think the swamp almost stops. And there's like I don't know if you guys have ever seen like a crater ecosystem, but there's it's this really weird thing where there's like a crater and an inland lake in the middle of it, and the swamp, one of the rivers from the swamp like drains into it, and then there's the swampy mangroves and like thick undergrowth above the crater, and then down in the crater it's like there's nothing on the walls, and then there's a totally different ecosystem underneath, and it's like this like slightly greener, lusher version of all those plants. And around it, there's just volumes of these birds, and we see crocodiles, light-colored crocodiles, moving across what looks like almost turf of moss, like it covers the ground. And as they like slide their bellies through it, they tear up the green, and it leaves like a brown trail behind them. And in the center of this crater, there's from the top down, it's this beautiful flowering tree that these birds kind of like feed on nectar from. And then as you come down the tree, it slowly becomes more and more human-like until at its base, it's like the frozen body of a pilgrim. And Naja like looks down over the edge of this crater that like empties away ahead of her, and sees like that river rolling down down that waterfall. She says to the bird, I think we will have to see our crocodile friends for help once more.
Nice. All right. Well, welcome to Murkur, the Death-Rolled Kingdom. That was lovely.
Yay!
Do you guys want to do a quick break to debrief, or just like 2 minutes to give everybody a minute to just elaborate, and then we can do that?
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
Back in 2. 5 after the hour.
Lauren, I got to play with you again.
No.
You're in Canada and everything, and I still got to play with you.
No, it was good to play with you again. Thank you for getting up at like ridiculously early in the morning.
That's okay. Sleep is for the weak. Everyone else does it. So I felt the peer pressure.
Oh, the cool kids are doing it. That's true.
Yeah. I don't know if you had the experience when you were doing your really early Veil ones, but it's like playing buried up to your neck in molasses. Like it's just everything's foggy and slow, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did some duets and month stats with Kyle, and I had to give it. Oh, that game started at 6, so not as early as you today, but like jamming that game when you've just woken up is so interesting. I guess it's appropriate because you're all teenagers and you're all tired all the time anyway.
Oh god, yeah. I feel like I had so much more energy at 17. I want to have a chat to you one day about duet games because I haven't played any, and you have all the brains, and I would love to pick them.
Yeah, I've designed some duet games. I'm designing some duet games, and I've played duet games. So yeah, yes. I would love to talk about duet games.
Awesome.
For sure. I would not recommend Monster Arts as a duet game. That game is fucking rough as a duet game.
Yeah, I think there's some freedom that comes from like redirecting people's emotional pettiness, and you can't redirect it if it's really just the two of you.
Yeah, exactly. And because that game has like no, I think I mentioned this, like no roles. Like, and the roles are lashing out at people, like turning them on and like gazing into darkness, like and outside of that, like there's no role to be like, will you please
have
like
an adult
me?
Conversation, yeah. Well, that's by design, but yeah, absolutely. Oh, I super want to have that chat with you Sunday. All right, cool. Yeah. Let's do this, and then we'll plan that out.
Yeah.
What time is that?
Should we say goodbye to the internet first?
Oh yeah, sure. If you want to.
Should have probably done that before. Bye, internet, for joining us.